Welcome back, Life Sciences. I hope you had a good little break, maybe had a sip of water and a little snack. Remember, we are looking at bacteria, and if you have a look at the concept map behind me, we have so far ticked off characteristics and structure of bacteria. It's not a very intense, difficult, section that we're doing. Can you identify that it's a bacteria? How is it different to the other microorganisms that we look at? And do you understand the concept that bacteria are single cells and that we can treat them by using antibiotics? That is very important. What I'm going to run through now is I'm going to look through 4 different diseases. And as I say to you, you only need to look at one in detail. So you might choose one, or your school might choose one for you, right? But you still need to have a broader knowledge of what the concepts of bacteria are. So we're going to go through the 4 bacteria diseases. As I said, and we're going to go through them briefly, just the basic points of them. And for each one, we're going to look at 2 things. What do they do to us? And actually, we've got one here that actually attacks plants, right? We've got bacteria that can attack plants. Viruses could also attack plants. And we're going to look at how we manage it. It's very important. We have gone through the COVID. How do we stop the spread? How are we going to stop making people sick? What can we do? And very often, what can our government do for us? Okay, let's have a look at our first disease. Okay, guys, we are looking at the 4 that I've put here in yellow. We're going to be looking at TB. We're going to be looking at anthrax. We're going to be looking at cholera. And we're going to be looking at blight. And I'm going to put here blight, rust. All right, 2 things that we're going to look at. So what's our first disease? The first disease we're going to look at is a serious disease in our country. And it's called tuberculosis, or TB. And very often it's a disease that we link with HIV/AIDS. Okay, because what happens is, lots of times, if our immune system is compromised or down, it's very easy. Bacteria can come into our bodies, right, and they can then make us ill, and they can even attack us. So the first one we're looking at is TB. So what is TB? Let's have a look at the diagram over here. As I said to you, it's caused by a bacillus. Can you see that? It's rod-shaped. It's a bacillus bacteria, and it's often found in cattle, in cows. And what it is, there are spores in the air, the bacteria. And we breathe them in, and they then go and sit in our lungs. Okay. So we breathe in, maybe somebody sneezes, coughs, we touch something. It's very much the same as when we look at the flu and COVID. And it goes into our body, and it goes and settles in our lungs. Now, probably a lot of you could have TB, and you won't even know it. And the reason being is because you're healthy. So if I'm healthy, my immune system, right, can fight the bacteria. Or what it does, it can make a little capsule, like I've drawn here, around the bacteria, and it actually stops it from spreading. Okay, so basically what the TB does, it's going to attack our lungs. So it's going to have an effect on how we breathe. So when we look at all the different kinds of effects, so how does it affect us? Have a look at all these pictures over here. You will see, all right, I've put nice little pictures, much easier sometimes to remember a picture. But what it does is we're tired because our lungs are damaged, so we're not getting enough oxygen in. So our body's tired, we got a headache, we cough a lot. And sometimes when we cough, there could be blood in our cough. Not all the time, but yes. We might have fever, we might have sweats, and if it carries on in our body, it can get to the stage where it's going to literally destroy our lungs, and ultimately it could cause death. So it's a very serious disease if it is not treated. So as you have a look over there, right, you lose weight, you're not healthy. You're not healthy, and the bacteria is slowly starting to take over your lungs, which are your oxygen trees, and you definitely need those. So what do we have to do? That is the main question. Let's have a look over here. The treatment is called DOTS, right? And that means directly observed therapy short course. What does it mean? It simply means this. TB can be cured if you have the TB that's not drug resistant. If you are able to go to a doctor, you go and you must get yourself tested. It's the same as HIV, know your status. If you have TB, they're going to start you on a long-term course of antibiotics, usually 6 months. And what DOTS is, direct observation, all right, is very simply, they are going to give you your medicine every single day. And it's 6 months worth. And that is the problem, because very often people feel better a little bit after taking the antibiotics, and then they stop. And then that bacteria that is still in your body doesn't die, and it starts developing again. And sometimes what could happen is the bacteria could mutate, which means change, and it can mutate into the bacteria that doesn't respond to any antibiotics. And that means that it's not going to be cured, right? Multiple drug-resistant TB, and you don't want to get that. How else are we going to keep ourselves nice and healthy? All right, guys, we need to have a nice diet. We need to eat properly. We need to exercise. We need to stop overcrowding. There's quite a few, right? If we look at the management, you will see there's quite a few things that we need to do. But we also need to look at the South African situation, all right? Does everybody have access to healthy foods? No. Does everybody have a nice, spacious, big house? No, right? So when we look at South Africa, right, when we look at our poverty and we look at when people are forced to live together in very small areas, unfortunately, it makes the spread of TB much easier. Okay, and often people don't want to know. They don't want people to know that they have TB because it has a stigma towards that. And unfortunately, right, you need to know so that you can be treated. Big problem, big killer, all right, a really big killer. It's probably the biggest killer, right, other than HIV and malaria in our country. Okay, some of you, I don't think you might have ever heard of this one before. Okay, this is called anthrax. Now, I've got a picture of a cow here. Can you see? I've got a picture of the cow on the screen. And the cow actually, all right, can attack the cow, and it can attack us. So we can get it, and cattle, goats, sheep, etc., they can all get anthrax. Okay, so it's not like a virus that passes onto it. We can get it from cattle, yes, but it can, what this one is so dangerous with, it forms those spores, and it lies in the ground for up to 20 years. Okay, so anthrax, what it does, have a look, it's not so lacquer. Okay, have you seen these? Oh, they form like these black sores on your body. And you will see it actually changes your brain, how it works. You've got fever, you're coughing, you're vomiting, you're nauseous, you're dizzy, headache, and you've got all these horrible, like black, it's called necrotic, it's dead skin, right, that all these sores on your body. And the cows as well, they also have these sores, right, it's almost like bleeding inside, it's not really nice. And when we have this, yes, we can be treated with antibiotics, but because of those spores, management has to come, especially when it comes to cattle and human bodies, we have to do something a little bit, all right, more, how can I say, drastic. So how are we going to treat it? We can vaccinate our cattle. Right? We don't generally get vaccinated for anthrax. So cattle, they're the ones who are mostly get it. So we vaccinate the cattle against it so that the bacteria, if they do get it, their body recognizes it and they could do something about it. But if a person dies from anthrax or cattle die from anthrax, the spores don't die. We need to actually burn it. All right, so the bodies need to be cremated if it's a human body, or the cattle, etc. Unfortunately, we need to actually burn it so that we can burn those spores as well. Now, I don't know if you watch some movies, but you know what they can make? You see, I've got bioweapon over here. They can actually take anthrax and they use it for biological warfare. They can manufacture anthrax in the laboratory, and I don't know if you've ever seen TV programs, it usually comes in an envelope as a white powder, and people can inhale it, and it obviously, as you see, it makes them very, very sick, right, with the vomiting, the dizziness, their heads, right, you can die from it, okay, and all those sores all over their body, okay. So when it comes to anthrax, not very pretty, all right, not a very pretty bacterial disease. But as I say to you, treat it. We can treat it with antibiotics. Okay, there we go. Okay, cholera. Now, cholera is a bacteria that we usually find, if you have a look at the picture over there, right, it's a vibrio, and what a vibrio means, it's a bacteria that looks like a comma, right? It's one of the shapes that I wanted to show you. That we had bacillus, we had the coccus, and this is like a comma one. Now, what happens here, this is actually one of the funniest things, is because you have the same bacteria in your large intestine. Can you see that? Right. I've put a picture of your intestine in there, and what it does is this bacteria is really, really helpful. Now, what happens is, if that same bacteria that's in your intestine we drink has a totally different effect. It really can, it makes the body quite sick. So usually now, you'll see if you guys have had a lot of rain, maybe during flooding, when there's a lot of water and people are drinking the water, you see they might get sick. Or sometimes lots of areas don't have proper toilets, so they dig holes in the ground near water, and then they drink the water, and you get sick because, remember, the bacteria that's inside your intestines, when you go to the toilet, when you have a feces, right, when you need a number 2, are you allowed to say that? And then what happens is that bacteria from the feces get into the water, and it makes you very, very sick. Okay, so what is the effects on your body? Have a look here. Basically, you get a very serious diarrhea, right? So you get a diarrhea, or you get vomiting. So you're losing all the water in your body, and you dehydrate. And dehydration can have a serious effect on your body, especially if you're a child. All right, children, if they have very serious runny tummies or they're vomiting, okay, that can have a serious effect. So if you dehydrate, can't be very good for you, okay, and especially if you are elderly or very young and you're sick already. So you'll see here, there are more severe symptoms. It can actually affect your heart rate and your blood pressure, okay, that's not really good when it starts to interfere with the heart. So not ideal, but the most important thing is, as I said to you, usually your body, the first response will be to try and get rid of it. And we flush our body with water, and that is the diarrhea and the vomiting. Not very nice at all. Okay, so guys, how do we stop it from occurring? It's bacteria. We've got to make ourselves, all right, very, very, very clean. So this is a concept that has come up constantly. When we did COVID, you were constantly washing your hands and sanitizing. And when we do that, we actually get rid of bacteria. Unfortunately, we also get rid of good bacteria, but we've got to make sure we're clean. Now here, you've got to, if you're constantly being sick, or you do have a runny tummy, right, you have to make sure that you drink a lot of water. Now, the water could make you sick in the first place. So please make sure that all water, if the water does look dirty, that you boil all the water before you drink it. So you boil it in a pot, in a kettle, and you leave it, and that's the water you drink. Because when we boil it, we're going to kill the bacteria. Okay. So everything, we can get vaccinated. We can have cholera vaccinations. right? But your food, also make sure that your food is cooked. Don't undercook food, because bacteria can also very often get into that food, and then it's going to make you sick as well. Right, guys, our last one is blight, or there's also rust, and this affects plants. And you're thinking to yourself, okay, what do plants have to do with it? Guys, you need to eat them. Farmers need to grow them. And our farmers need to be able to grow fruit that they can sell, that they can use. So if you have a bacterial disease, if you have a look over here, I don't know about you, but I really am not going to want to eat those grapes. And South Africa, what do we need grapes for? Yeah, we have a wine industry, okay? And here's tomatoes. I don't know about you, but I don't think that looks like a really nice tomato to eat. So if a bacterial disease is going to attack our foods, our farmers, it's going to affect on our economy as well, because the farmers can't sell it and we can't eat it, so it's going to be a waste. So what do? Okay, there we go. That's what it does. Okay, so quite simply, bacteria we can disinfect. So make sure if you do see that, maybe it's in your garden. Maybe you have a little patch that you're just growing vegetables for yourself and you see that. Think about things. Only when you cut things, make sure that all your instruments, your shears, your spade, etc., anything is nice and clean. Right? Have a look here. Also, don't do any kind of work when it's raining or wind, because that's going to, all right, make sure that it's going to spread. Also, interesting thing over there is, if you are going to buy a plant, if you blight on the side of the street or from somebody, check it first. Are the leaves nice and green? What does the fruit look like? You know, you need to actually look at your stock. And over here, the last one, don't water from overhead, right? Because if you water from the top, it stays on the top of the plant. So if I had to go back here, the water, if we water at the top, right, it stays moist all at the top, and it actually rots. So it keeps it all nice and moist, and the bacteria can grow nicely. So what we want to do, we want to have a water system that just waters the ground underneath. So the water is in the ground, and it seeps into the ground, and it doesn't stay onto the fruit. Okay, guys, that's all for now. We're going to have a small little break, and we'll be right back.